do you think? Hang on, I think we've got a connection problem here. Oh, there we go. I'm on the mute. I had the tape recorder on the mute button. Sorry, David, my fault.
We'll ask that question again, will you?
You've got... how will the Illawarra fans in the St George Illawarra combination, how will they handle it, do you think? The junior partners.
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we? I've made the point all along that reference to selections and numbers from former teams is just fraught with danger. What we're after is people to jump on the train that's going in 99 and build a future for a new club, and it's up to us to make sure that the foundations of that new club, sure we've drawn from two others, but those foundations need to be sound, and behind that is a development of a rock solid base of support, whether we play at Cogra or whether we play at Wynn Stadium. As I said to the players, we are the travelling Wilburys or the Gypsies of rugby league, if you like, and we need to understand why it's important and why Trent plays so well at Wynn and why Lance Thompson absolutely loves playing at Cogra, and we need to understand that about one another and grow off that, I think. And
the supporters will hopefully grow off that, because it was, we mentioned...
Winning helps too.
Yeah, that helps, but the St George people, you've been probably closer to that band, obviously. Do you think they're getting behind this combination?
Well, I think they're like everybody looking at a joint venture, wondering how it's going to go. And as I said, our job is the product on the field. Off the field, administratively, in the pre-season, we found out lots of things. We like one another, we don't want having a drink, and we can relax. But it's whether do we take those little efforts on the football field that are required to win games of football and possibly live up to those expectations that Warren mentioned at the end of last season that surround a team that's got a list of good players, but not necessarily a football team yet.
St George Illawarra versus Canterbury next week at Cogra. We may well be there.
I think one of the things that has to be that'll be sort of highlighted or has to be proven is whether the regional people of Illawarra will accept the fact that it's virtually a takeover. It's a St George team, and that when they do play down there, will they get behind that team, given that they've got some vested interest in it, some involvement via their players, or will it be clear that they draw better on Cogra Oval? I think that's one to be watched this year.
They still have a large representation there, while not numerically last night, in the figure of Paul McGregor, say, or a Trent Barrett. There's a definite feel there, isn't there, David?
Well, I thought the split up last night's game was nowhere near 50-50.
No.
Hence maybe Warren's comment. But I've got no doubt over the season that the 13 or 12 that we started with are all going to pay fairly equal shares in the wash-up. And I take Warren's point too. It'll be interesting to see how the two sets of supporters get behind it, and whether the Illawarra supporters do feel that it's just a takeover because it's the same jumper basically with the Illawarra name put on the logo. So I hope they embrace the football team, and I hope the football team comes up and plays the sort of football that they want to support, and that's our job.
All right, we're going to go back to that scene of euphoria here at full time, and let's visualise all the people in front of us on the feet, throwing everything in the air, throwing their voices into the air. 10,000 people making the noise of 20, and they celebrated Craig Wing flashing over in the corner in the last 57 seconds of play. By the time the kick was taken, the clock had run down, and the South Sydney side, the rejuvenated combination, had scored a 16-14 win over Canterbury.
South's coach Craig Coleman, congratulations. You couldn't have wanted a better start.
No, we've had pretty good form going into this game. We come up against one of the tougher sides in the comp. Our blokes learned a lot out of today. I've said all along, we're the best kept secret in the NRL. We get our 50% of the ball, we'll beat a lot of sides.
Given the way you played in the second half, when behind, would you have felt disappointed if you hadn't won the game?
No, well, it's all a learning curve for us, isn't it? If we'd have got beat today, we'd have went away and we'd analyse things and come back next week trying to fix some things up. Like I said before, we've learned a lot out there today, and mate, these blokes have got hearts as big as themselves, and we've got a bit of class there to help now. So, mate, we're at Canberra next week. We'll get our feet back in the ground tomorrow morning and get ready for them. What was the mood like at half-time? You trailed 12-6. You had scored first, but going out in the second half, you were behind. What'd you say to your players? We just spoke about doing the little things well, about just getting forward and getting to our kick. So we lost our way for about 10 minutes here. They started belting us around a bit, which they do to a lot of sides, but the good sides bounced back, and we copped the baton from them, and in there, I think we give it to them. You're probably going to be reluctant to comment about last year's side. You weren't coaching last year's side, but from what you've seen, from a purely football point of view, you think you got a better side than last year, haven't you? Oh, we're going to have a far better side. We've got a very good side. I said it all along, mate. We're the best kept secret in the RL, and we like to leave it that way. You go and ask the Bulldogs, mate. They know they've been in a tough game. Not a few wounded blokes there too.
A tough performance. You matched them physically, but the attack is there as well. Craig Wing at fullback, terrific today. Tricky Trindle seemed to benefit from the fact that Andrew Doonerman's at 5'8". There's a good combination there as well.
Mate, I've said all along, the world's his oyster, Craig Wing. He's one of the most talented kids I've come across, and Trindle's probably second behind Andrew Johns, the halfback in the world. That's in my eyes, and I think he showed it again today. He's one of the best halfbacks in the world.
Who would you like to pick out of your forwards today? I suppose Mark Carroll coming from Manly, an old South boy. He did a good job for you. There's plenty of others there as well.
Oh, mate, it'd be hard to single one out, but I've got to give some praise to Jeremy Slosh, mate. He couldn't walk yesterday. I rang him this morning, and I said, mate, make sure you're right. He said, Tugger, I wouldn't let you down, and he went there today, and I thought he was the best player on the field.
Yeah. What about the crowd support here today? I know George Piggins went public on the back page of the Telegraph demanding trying to encourage South supporters to come out. They've come out today. You'd want to keep them here and hope they bring a few friends with them.
Yeah, they come out. There's 10,000 there. They're very, very vocal. They mean a very lot to us, and they'll get the message shortly that they've got a very, very good football team who are going to try right to the last minute for them, and we're going to make them very proud.
How's Craig Coleman feel? First game, first grade coach with South Sydney. I'm
a very proud man. They're the games you like to win when it's tough and hard, and it takes me back to the old times, mate. But, mate, as I said, it's a long season, mate, 26 weeks. Ask me around 26 and I'll tell you.
Good luck. Congratulations on a tremendous start. Thanks for joining us on Grandstand.
Thanks, Star.
Craig Coleman with Craig Hamilton. A quick question for Warren and David Waite. Warren, would you like to see South in the 14-team format, if there is to be one?
I don't think that I'd like to nominate anyone that I wouldn't like to see there. Wilco, I don't think that'd be too prudent to be saying, prefer not to see them in it or prefer to see this, that or the other done. I just think it's a very, very difficult. No one's been able to come up with an accurate formula that pleases everybody. To say, I see South building this year. They tried last year, but you can't do it in 1 year. They threw a bit of money around, and perhaps not as wisely, but you can only throw it at the available talent. They've built again this year on top of that, and I think they probably need one more year of building, and I think you'll find that they'd be pretty formidable. You'd shudder to think that they'd be tipped out 1 year prematurely. So, see, things are cyclic, and we've said that. If you go back to early 90s, probably you'd tip Parramatta out. If you analysed your premiership table and you always clip the bottom, someone's always going to come last. It's just a question of if they're running at the bottom regularly, and there's no way financially they can get to the top, and they can never compete, and they can never draw the crowd, get the sponsorship. Therefore, they never got the money. Therefore, they never got the competitive clout to buy the players, and so they're forever battling. Probably there's justification then for some trimming or amalgamating or, whatever you want to call it, rationalising. But
doesn't solve the rationalising problem, does it?
No, but for me to say, whether I'd like to see South in or South out, I wouldn't like to see South out. I wouldn't like to see anyone particularly drop out of the competition. When we had a 20-team competition, I started to think differently from, prior to that, when I thought that, perhaps there weren't enough players to go around. I think we actually created a lot more players capable of playing at the highest level. The spread of talent was the thing. When you concentrate too much talent in too few clubs, it tends to highlight the fact that, there's this dreadful imbalance in standard, and the spoils always go to just a few, residents of the semis each year. But if the talent's liberally spread across enough teams, and each team's got a capacity to develop and have youngsters come along in those ranks as well to bolster, you can have more teams. But the great tragedy of league in my time has been that the concentration of too much talent in too few teams, with the sheer power of a chequebook. That's been one of the great tragedies of the game in my view.
In a moment, David Waite's thoughts. Before David, Craig Wing.
Well, South fullback Craig Wing, welcome to Grandstand Rugby League. Congratulations, tremendous win.
Oh yeah, it was a good win. It's always good to win like that, especially right on the bell. Great lift for the boys and for the crowd.
Tell us, truthfully, throughout the game, were there times when you thought it was gone and that Canterbury were coming home the stronger and were going to finish on top?
No, not at all. They never got too far ahead, and with the players we've got, like Carroll and tricky players like Tricky Trindle and Zuniman, always knew that would be a chance coming back.
Right, then there were plenty of opportunities, weren't there? In the last 10 or 15 minutes, you finally got the try, but there was 3 or 4 other occasions. The final pass sticks you over as well.
Yeah, there were plenty of opportunities that we just didn't finish off. But I don't know. We just played pretty well, I think, all round.
From a confidence point of view, how important is a win like that against last season's grand finalists?
Oh, it's really, really good. We have confidence in each other, and that a win like that only reassures it, especially against last year's grand finalists, Canterbury. It's a great thing.
Tell us a little bit about Craig Wing. We're starting to hear about you, and you played a great game today. How do you see yourself?
How do I see myself? Well, I played a lot of positions last year, but I haven't really settled in anywhere. I'm mainly a halfback, 5'8", but anything's possible with this team, I suppose.
Yeah. And what about fullback? You played well there today. Would you like to make that position yours?
Oh, it's my second game at fullback, and I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of luck, and I'll just have to see how things go in the future.
We wish you well. Congratulations on a terrific effort first up. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Craig Wing. Craig's all over the place. David, the same question to you. And coming from a man who's in charge of a joint venture.
Well, I'm certainly in charge of a joint venture. Pleased to be given the opportunity and the challenge, I suppose. But no one involved in football or grown up with football likes to see the end of any club. Over the last few years, I think back to the new towns and the western suburbs and the battles that have been fought there, the people that are going to make those decisions aren't rugby league coaches, and they're rugby league administrators, and I suppose we can talk through it and round it and all the ways you like. There is going to come a time when power's far greater than the coaches and are going to have an influence on how many teams are going to play. Coaches will be appointed to coach them, the players will play in them. Whether that's for the betterment of the game is for everyone to discuss and debate, I suppose. I'd hate to see the demise of any football club. But there also comes a time if they can't match certain things. And I think facilities are the highlight of the weekend, for example. And if crowds are important, facilities are important to crowds and all those sorts of things, well, some rationalisation may need to take place if people just can't compete at all. But in saying that, my heart's in football, and to see any club disappear off the face of the senior football is a very sad thing. But in saying it, I'm not in the position to make those decisions, and then they become business decisions and not decisions based on emotion and football. And as I said, I'm pleased I'm not in the chair having to make those decisions, because we've all seen over the past decade or so the emotion in football, and we saw it today, what emotion can do. And I'm sure if we said tonight, if the South aren't playing next year, there would be an absolute uproar after their performance against last year's grand finalists.
Well, here's a man in the chair, and he will be for some time.
South President George Piggins, how do you feel at the moment inside this South Sydney dressing room?
Oh, we feel great. With a win like that, it's just tremendous for the club, and we're real happy about it.
You were after the fans to turn up today. You went public with a public letter to say, come along. Are you happy with the response?
No, I was probably a little bit disappointed with the crowd. I'd have to give Canterbury half the crowd. So really and truly, that means we got round about 4,500, 5,000 South people here to watch us play, and the effort was worth more than that.
You got to be kidding, George. When South, from our point of view anyway, certainly it seems to be a South crowd. They were right behind your team, very vocal.
Well, I'm giving Canterbury last year's grand final. Surely to God, they would have come here with 4,000, and what I mean, and we should have got 5 here. We probably got 5 here, but that game deserved a crowd of 15,000, 20,000 people.
Yeah, it was a great game, and it went down to the wire. What do you make of some of the younger players today that stood up?
Well, young Craig Wing, he looks like he's going to be a brilliant player. The young winger on the other side, Lee Hook, he looks like he's going to be a very fine player. And with Tringle having so much enthusiasm and Sean Garlick, well, and the forwards being as big as what they are, we should have a good season.
Yeah. Doonerman at 5'8" did some good things.
Yeah, he had a real fine game, Doonerman. I don't think we had a bad player on the field, but a few times there, I suppose you've probably got to take in consideration, and I wasn't, they were last year's grand finalists. And what I mean, you're hoping you're going to put them away earlier and all that, and things weren't coming our way, and you probably were expecting a little bit too much, but at the end of the day, the win was just sensational.
Is there a little message, or maybe a big message, to the National Rugby League today on A, the numbers have turned up, and the way the sides played?
Well, we've always said we're not going to die, so I look at it this way. The only way South Sydney's going to die, they want to cut our throats, and I think it would be a very unpopular move by anyone running rugby league to get rid of someone that's probably well presented in rugby league as what South Sydney has been over the past.
George Piggins, congratulations. Enjoy the moment. Thanks for joining us.
Very much.
And we might hear just a couple of words from the Canterbury Bulldogs coach, Steve Folkes, to round it all out tonight. Steve Folkes again with
Steve
Craig
Folkes, can
Hamilton.
you be disappointed about losing a game like that today against an enthusiastic, never say die Souths?
Yeah, I certainly am. They played very well. Unfortunately, we didn't play as well as we would have liked, and all credit to them. They converted their opportunities, which we didn't do.
So it was more of a case of South Sydney winning it today rather than Canterbury losing it?
Oh, I think so, yeah. I don't think you can take anything away from them. Our ball control was pretty reasonable, but we just didn't do all that much when we had it, unfortunately. So, and a couple of opportunities that we had, we squandered on last pass.
No sort of complacency or a letdown halfway through the second half when you led 12-6?
Oh, well, I hope there was no complacency. I wouldn't think there would be. We got the 8-point lead, and I thought that would have been enough, but they had a hell of a lot of ball towards the end of the second half, and playing with man down. We just couldn't cover them everywhere.
Did they impress you today, the way they played?
Oh, extremely enthusiastic. Darryl Trindle's got a few tricks in his bag, and Tony Iro's a bit the same. But yeah, I thought their go forward was good. They, as I said, they were very enthusiastic, and their defence was pretty strong in the middle of the ruck.
Steve Folkes with Craig Hamilton. Well, thanks very much for your company this weekend. Thanks particularly to Warren Ryan and David Waite backing up after a huge...
2:12. This is Radioactive 4BC. Peter Dick and Jan Verghese is here doing the dreams, talking about your dreams.